Hello everyone, my name is Leo Ramos and I'm one of the instructors at the Yellow Barn Studio in Glen Echo, Maryland. And for this video I wanted to take on a subject that's sometimes overlooked by artists, and that's sketching. And for those of you that don't know what sketching is basically a freehand drawing that's rapidly executed, and it's looked at more of as a way of taking notes or jotting things down. But it serves a number of purposes that I think are real valuable for any artist, and I'd hope to motivate everybody watching this video and anybody taking my classes to sketch more often on their free time. Now, for me, sketching not only works as a way of taking visual notes, but I use it as a warm-up too. It kind of primes your brain to get ready for to take on our larger artwork. If you look at artists like Philip DeLazlo, and before he took on any portrait works, he would always do a quick sketch. Now, it was kind of a thumbnail, if you want to think of it that way, and he would just in that sketch put his composition down and block in some of the shapes that he was going to put in the painting. But it was real quick, and he never worked off the sketch, but I suspect he used it kind of like a primer, warmed up for the more important or more finished piece. I could use an analogy, and I'm going to use sports, for example, and there's certain exercises that athletes will learn when they're first starting out in whatever particular sport they're in, that is indispensable and they never stop doing. Now, I'm going to use boxing, for example. Anytime somebody walks into a gym and they want to learn how to fight, the first thing, or typically what a coach would do, is they'll show them how to move their feet, how to walk like a fighter, so how to move back and forth and side to side without stepping over their feet or losing their balance. And once they have that down, then they start throwing punches and coordinating those punches with their feet movement, so that they're synchronized. That way the fighter has good balance. Now, these fighters will learn an array of punches, jabs, rights, hooks, uppercuts, and once they've got them down, they begin to do something that's called shadowboxing. Now, shadowboxing is essentially you're imagining an opponent in front of you, and you're visualizing yourself fighting that opponent and seeing how you would move if he throws a jab at you, or how he would move if he's coming forward or moving backward. And that's where the name comes from. It's like you're fighting with your shadow. That's why it's called shadowboxing. If you've ever seen a pay-per-view fight, you'll see some of these world-renowned fighters and these world champions, and they're in their locker rooms and they're getting warmed up for a fight. And one of the things you'll usually see them do is shadowboxing. Now, it's something that you learn as an amateur, as a novice fighter, but it's an indispensable exercise, because while they're shadowboxing, they're imagining what their opponent is going to do in the ring. And they're trying to use the movements that they've practiced in the gym, and they're visualizing the fight in their head. Sketching is to an artist what shadowboxing is to a prize fighter. You can't sketch enough. I'll say that again. You cannot sketch enough. There is no such thing as over sketching, or spending too much time sketching. That doesn't exist. When you're sketching, you're visualizing your ideas, you're putting them on paper, you're making your ideas come together, and you're experimenting. That way you're ready for when you're taking on your final piece. I try to sketch at least one thing a day. and I typically won't spend more than 10 minutes in a sketch. So for example, the line and the portraits that I'm working on in here, I usually won't go more than 10 minutes, and I'm not paying close attention to details. I'm essentially just doing a bunch of scribble scrabble and some of that scribble scrabble is a lot faster than some of the other ones, but I'm blocking in shapes and I'm roughly getting the tones in, and I'm looking at what the composition is gonna look like, but I'm not really focusing too much on detail. Now I might add a little detail here and there depending on what I'm working at, or if I foresee an issue on when I'm gonna do a painting, but I'm trying to make it very loosely. Sketching is indispensable. It's an exercise that's gonna reflect in any work that you do. I can personally attest that whenever I've taken on a painting and I haven't warmed up or I haven't sketched, it definitely comes out stiffer. Now if I've already been painting that day and I'm on my second or third painting of the day, then yeah, I'm loose. But if I don't want to start a painting to warm up for another painting, then I just whip out my sketchbook and I do a quick thumbnail. It just warms you up and it gets you ready for the more important piece. Now, if you're looking for ideas on what to sketch, then all you have to do is look around. Literally anything can be a subject for a sketch. But one thing I would particularly recommend you do is take your sketchbook and a pencil and go to a museum. In my area, I have the National Gallery in DC, and go look at some of the works of the artists that you really like, painters or sculptors or whatever that you really admire, and just sit in front of their works and spend a couple of minutes sketching what they do, how they put their composition down, and where they put their shadows, and how they relate one object with another. Also, if we're fortunate enough in this era that we have access to all of these images online, so if there's an artist that you really like how they draw or how they apply line work or whatever, do a master copy, and you'll learn so much from doing that. I honestly can't stress enough how important this is. So I hope you like this video.